Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another EAFC video with me, Kieran. And today, it's one that a lot of you lot found useful last year. That is my SBC guide. And by that, I don't mean it's a guide for a certain SBC. This video is going to help you with every single SBC you complete over the next year, and maybe even beyond. So I'm going to be going through the best way to complete these SBCs, what kind of players, what kind of leagues may be useful, some little tips and tricks to find stuff a little bit cheaper, and just stuff like that. Everything in this video is going to be helpful, and we're going to finish, as we always do, with my top 5 SBCs that you have to complete if you want to be doing well on EAFC. So we are going to start with the really easy stuff before we go into anything else. The first 2 things you need to do, actually read the requirements. I'm guilty of this all the time. I'll go, oh, it needs this many players, it's 78 rated. I'm just going to buy a 78 rated team from one nation and it'll work. And then I don't check that it's max 3 from a certain nation or something like that. It's really basic, but even I fall foul of it sometimes, so just make sure that you check those. On top of that, just make sure you've got enough coins to actually finish the SBC in one go. I wouldn't recommend doing half the SBC, because then something else might come out in the meantime that you'd rather do, and then you'll kind of split for coins and you've wasted players. Especially later in the year when the icon SBCs, those player SBCs that require quite a few squads come out, I think it's much better to do it in one go, unless it's one with a really long time on it, and then you can kind of do it in increments, but I wouldn't do that if you don't have the coins, because you're just risking putting coins into something that you're going to get nothing out of. So that's a big no for me. Make sure you have the coins. And on top of that, a lot of you will have done now, but I know quite a few of you still struggle with it. Get to grips with the new chemistry. With the women's players in as well, it adds a little bit of an extra dynamic this year, because you can have players that link because they're the same club and then aren't from the same league. I'll link my chemistry video from last year so you can pay attention to that. But that's definitely something I'd recommend doing to kind of satisfy the requirements for some SBCs. Get 2 leagues while only using 1 club. Also, although the chemistry style has changed, don't underestimate the hyperlinks. So before we continue, I want to talk about Footbin very quickly as well. We've got a random player highlighted here, and I do mean that. I actually didn't mean to highlight that player, but we're going to be talking about Footbin, what's good about it and what's not good about it. For me, I wouldn't use it to complete SBCs by just copying the players and that's it. You've got my channel for that, and my ones don't get price fixed anywhere near as much, so you might as well use my channel. And I'm not just saying that for the views or anything. Footbin, genuinely not worth it for copying players for SBCs, because they all literally get price fixed, and so do a lot of the players that are similar to them. Because the Footbin solutions tend to go in cycles for the main SBCs. You'll see a Spanish team one day, Argentinian team the next day, Brazilian team after, for the first 11 for example, and they'll just kind of cycle those 3 teams, and some of them will appear cheaper. But they're all expensive, much more expensive than what you can get by using me or working it out on your own. And speaking of working out on your own, something that Footbin is really useful for, if I just go over to it here on the SBCs, it's set to FIFA 23 at the moment, but you can kind of copy the way that they do the chemistry. I actually find this quite useful, because some of the chemistry, especially for like the hybrid master, is very difficult to work out. So if I was to go all the way down here to an SBC that maybe requires a little bit of chemistry, I'm looking for the foundations, but they don't seem to be here. You can just copy what they do, basically. It's that easy. So if they've got a Spanish player that's from maybe La Liga, and they're linking 3 of those together, and then maybe they've got a Argentinian player from La Liga, and then he links over to the Argentinian league or something, you could do something like that. So I might go, I need 3 players that have the same league, same nation as each other, and then maybe 2 more players that have the same nation but a different league, and that league has to be the same. Something like that. So I hope that makes sense to you. But again, you've got all these SBCs kind of here to have a look at for that. Obviously on Footbin as well, we get the cheapest players by rating tab, which you can see here. I wouldn't recommend that much either, just because a lot of those players end up getting price fixed just the same as SBCs. This is useful to maybe have a look at the players that are a little bit further up, because they end up actually tending to be cheaper further along the way. And it just gives you an idea of what players you have as options for SBCs. But outside of the goalkeepers, they're not normally that accurate, so I'd just be aware of that. So now we're going to move over to things you should do on the actual game, and don't worry, I'm not playing the game early, this is FIFA 23. First of all, when you're doing any kind of SBC, I want a fresh account here to show you stuff. You don't want to use players from your team, especially at the start. Maybe my Welbeck's banging in goals, and I'm going to put him into an SBC that gives me a pack or something back. Just don't do it unless it is insane value, especially if it's players you're grinding for. I'm going to see a lot of people chucking evolution cards in and stuff, and I just don't think you should do that. If they're in your team, they're in your team for a reason. They're reliable, you know they're good enough. You don't want to risk it on, especially a pack that might not be good, but even a new card that might not feel as good as the stats are. Another one which is especially useful when you're using silver and bronze rares, and that is bidding on players. They're just so much cheaper. If I go over to the market, I haven't been on this in so long, I forgot where it is. You can get yourself some bronze rares for just 150 to satisfy the rare requirements for SBCs, and that's definitely something I do. If you've got a squad that is around 75 rated, maybe even lower, don't use gold rares. Try and get yourself some bronze or silver rares. With this one, I definitely wouldn't copy Footbin. I wouldn't even copy me, because there's not much supply of these cards. What I do is just find 2 that link to each other, the same structure of chemistry from Footbin or through me or whatever, and just go with that. So maybe I use 2 Italian centre-backs that link to each other, but they've gone up. So you might go, oh, I'm going to use 2 German centre-backs, and you can just bid on them, get them for 150. That one has expired for 1.4k, someone's probably bought that by accident. But if I'm maybe looking for the same players, if I go on like a 200 by now, 250 by now even, you won't see any all the way up to quite high up. You can see I'm going 550 here, that's the cheapest I see them. They will be cheaper on the new game, I think they're needed for a certain SBC here. But they're very, very cheap, basically, is what I'm trying to say, especially if you bid. Another big tip I'll have for all of you is when you're doing an SBC that requires players from a certain nation or a certain league, the main one that does this will be the marquee matchups, but there will be absolutely loads of them. Try and get away from that league as soon as possible. I'm just going to go on Shomadov as a bit of an example here. If it was earlier in the year, you probably need 2 players from Serie A, maybe even 1 from Caligari. I wouldn't expect you to need 1 from Uzbekistan, because there basically isn't any. But what I do, instead of building a whole team of players from the Serie A, just try and get away to a different league as soon as you can, because players that link to the players you need will go up. So if you need a Roma player and you've got Tammy Abraham, some of those English players might go up as well because they link to Tammy Abraham. So that's just something to think about, especially if they have a same club link, they have a perfect link, or they have a league and nations link, they're expected to go up. So try and get away from that as soon as possible and get onto a different league and nation. Another one for me is that just don't do kits SBCs, don't do TIFO SBCs. There's not really much point to them. Like, if it's the team you support or a player that you love or something, obviously go for it. But especially at the start of the year, it is not really worth it for you. I'm going to just move through these SBCs because there's a few things that I want to show you. Obviously, we've got the pre-season crafting upgrade here. The 86x10 as well. There isn't any marquee matchup style SBCs for me to show you, but I'll show you on one like this. As soon as you can get out of a league, what you want to do for golds, I'd recommend going to the Eredivisie. They always have some pretty good players. If I just go gold, common, and I go to the Eredivisie, I'll show you that. As well as the MLS is pretty good as well. The Libertadores can be absolutely brilliant. That's definitely going to be your friend. But look, there's pretty wealthy supply here of non-rare golds, and they have a lot of nations as well. So they won't get price fixed because there's so many of them. There's a wealth of nations that you can use there, but it's not the most popular league, so it won't be that expensive. MLS, especially on the really low level SBCs, there's not as many here. They can get price fixed a bit better. But like here, we've got Rigoni and Droyusi, I think, have perfect link. Boo links them as well. Morales, there's a lot of Argentines in this league, which is very useful and can link across. So that is definitely a good one. And the Super League as well. The Super League can be used for silvers. That is a Turkish league for anyone who doesn't know. But it's good for golds as well. We see how many we've got here. Again, a lot of different nations, a lot of obscure ones. So like Roman Saish, you can link across to Nea Faguer. You could link a lot of players here. Like you could link him to Sorloth. Even Dele Alli, you could link across, use different leagues. You could have the likes of Madueke. Obviously, he is not going to be a PSV anymore. And even Tammy Abraham. So that's just some really good leagues for you to use. There is some for silvers as well. I'd say the Romanian League is always a good one for silvers. Nations is normally easier to do for silvers. Again, the top 9 have the most cards, but they can be a little bit awkward because a lot of people do try and go on them. So I like Romania, that's a pretty good one. Maybe even Australia sometimes, but that is a little bit more out there. And Belgium is a very, very good one at the start of the game, especially for the silver cards. And most of them are from the Belgian league as well, so that it just is a good one. I can't get a concept place card at the moment for some reason. There we go. See how many we've got here. So many Belgian silvers. Obviously, they're not all going to be price fixed at the same time, so that's quite a good one to use too. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the Libertadores is absolutely brilliant because their rare cards count as rare cards for SBCs, and a lot of people don't realise that. So buy gold rares. They won't buy Libertadores cards. It's put on high to low very, very quickly, and we'll just see what's there. Like Armani 79 rated, Rossi 79 rated. And of course, you can have players from different leagues that actually kind of link to each other because they are all Libertadores. I don't know if they've changed that. No, they haven't. So all these cards will link to each other, despite the cards being from different countries, which is really, really broken, I think. It gives you a lot of nations, a lot of teams to use. You can do a lot of good club links, and they're all from the same league, so it is pretty class. And obviously, as well as that, you can use the Sudamericana cards as well, which are there in a lovely blue colour. You see, we've even got some gold ones here that would be really, really good for your rating. And another thing I want to add to the kind of SBCs that are worth doing, SBCs that aren't worth doing, don't do players that you're absolutely never going to use and don't link to anyone, just in case you might use them. There's no point in doing that. You can always evolve a player for that position, or just buy one off the market. Don't put a load of players into someone that there's a very low chance you'll end up using. And from there, we are going to move on to my 5 best SBCs that you should always do to make a profit, but also to kind of stock your club up on EAFC. And we're going to start with one that I've been talking about a lot in this video. It isn't here at the moment, but it's especially good at the start of the year, and it is going to be tradable again, which makes it so much better, and that is the marquee matchup SBCs. At the start of the year, my methods are going to be out for this, so make sure you're following them because I do find some really good value ones. Any of you that have been around a while, I'm sure you can vouch for that. And they're also quite easy to complete at the start of the year. People don't really trade with them anymore. They had in the past, but I think in the last about 2 years, people have given up because people have got wise to it. So there's not really too much risk in you overspending on these. And I do give some good packs, especially at the start of the year, but unfortunately, they're not out at the moment, so I can't get them up for you. So we're going to move on to our next one. We're in the foundations for this. We're going to be there a lot, and we're going to hybrid leagues and first 11. The only reason this is so low, it is going to be a tradable pack this year. From what I've heard, there's rumours EA might change it, but it is tradable for now. This one's only this low because it is quite expensive and it is a little bit prone to price fixing, but it's certainly worth doing when you get the coins. A 50k pack normally will pay back what you've spent. It's quite a big outlay to put in the first place. With price fixed cards, it can be as high as 25k, but if you're willing to be patient, which I recommend for all these SBCs, especially the advanced, maybe wait about a week, they'll go down absolutely loads, and there is quite a few methods for it, especially next year with the women's cards. It's going to be quite a lot easier to do. And with all these foundation SBCs, as well as the marquee matchups, I'm going to be uploading them to my channel, some solutions, so make sure you're getting in there. They'll be starting on Sunday if you're watching it the day this video comes out, and probably over Monday as well. I'll try and get all 12 of them out for you. Next, we've got probably the most famous SBC in FIFA, and that is the Puzzle Master, which gives you a 50k pack. This one I believe is going to remain untradeable, but it is quite a lot easier than it used to be. It's only an 80 rated squad. You use 5 leagues, 6 nations, can be quite difficult, but again, I'll be here to help you. This one is nowhere near as expensive. I did it for I think 12k last year, and obviously it has gone down since. So this one, again, with the addition of women's teams, is only going to get easier. Gives you a good pack. Whilst it's untradeable, fleshes out your club, you'll probably still get a good player from it. So, on to number 2, and this one is in the upgrades tab. If you've been around a while, you know what I'm going to say here. I'm going to go for SBCs that aren't out all the time as well. We're going to go for the classic gold upgrade. I don't know where it's gone. It is here. There we go, the classic gold upgrade. At the start of the year, you're going to have loads of gold on rares that you don't even want. Just chuck them into an SBC. You're going to want something to do with them, and especially if they're untradeable. At the start of the year, untradeable is only into this. Stick them into an SBC. Obviously, I'm on a new account, so I don't have loads at the moment. But what I'd say with this, I have kind of alluded to it. Stick your untradables in, keep your tradables, because you can sell them on and use them for a different SBC right at the start of the game. But once you start racking up those useless common cards that you don't want to evolve, you don't want to use in any way, stick them into the gold upgrade, because the luck on this SBC always seems to be pretty broken at the start. So it is time for my number 1 favourite SBC to do on this game, and the one I think will be the best on EAFC. But just before that, I'm going to give you a few shout outs of some other ones that are very useful that were just outside the top 5. The Challenger is very good. The third SBC from all 3 of these sets here are brilliant as well. So that's the whole 9 yards, gives you a 45k pack. There's rumours that'll be a 55 this year. You get a 50k pack for doing Elite 8 as well. And then over on this one we have, I believe it's Fiendish. They might have slightly different names, but all those are pretty good, as well as the Challenger there. 80 plus player picks as well. Whenever they come out, they're always pretty solid. Again, I just put players that are untradeable and you're never going to use into that. Any players you can sell is probably worth selling them instead, because they go up when that SBC comes out. But use your untradeables, or they're just going to sit there and collect dust. But back to the one that's going to be my number 1 SBC. We are heading back to the foundations, as we always do. They're just so good. They're unbeatable, guys. We are going not to the hybrid leagues, we've already been there. We're going to the hybrid nations, and we are going to around the world, which is going to give you a tradable 55k pack this year, and it is just so much easier than all of the other hard SBCs from these groups. It's way easier than Puzzle Master, and it is way easier than First 11. This one I've been able to do for under 10k on multiple occasions, and I think it will be the same this year. This one you can just chuck 1 league in of literally the same player. It's 81 rated, so you're going to have all rare golds. So the cheapest it can physically come in at is about 8k, and it is quite easy to find that. Just find a league that works, one that has loads and loads of players of different nations, and it shouldn't be too difficult. Again, I'll have a tutorial on it, but you might not even need one for this SBC. It's so easy. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you've got any questions or you've got any SBC tips for yourself, drop them down below, because even I might learn some stuff for you. It's always good to improve, isn't it? But yeah, that's going to be all from me. Make sure you're tuning in over the next few days. If you're watching this the day it comes out, I'm going to be streaming all day Friday, starting at about 11 AM UK time, all the way until 9 PM. We're going to do a really long stream of EAFC. Make sure you turn up for it. I'll see you guys soon. I can't wait for this game to come out. Have a good day and goodbye.